Somua S-35. The best French tank in 1940, the Somua S-35, had good armor, armament, and performance. The speed of the German advance, however, and the use of air power prevented any tanks mounting an effective defense. Many of the surviving S-35s entered service with German units. The S-35 had the same turret as the Char B-1 bis heavy tank. The door on the left side of the hull was the main exit, but there was also an escape hatch in the underside. There were 18 road wheels protected by armored skirts that could be hinged upwards for maintenance. The engine was positioned at the left rear with a self-sealing gas tank on the right. There was a fireproof bulkhead separating the fighting compartment from the engine. The 47 millimeter SA-35 high-velocity gun could fire high-explosive and armor-piercing shells. The S-35 had the same type of one-man turret used on other French tanks, although on the S-35 it was electrically traversed, which reduced the commander's burdens. The cast hull was constructed of upper and lower halves joined by bolts. If hit here by an anti-tank shell, the tank could split and fall apart. That's not too good. Intended for use by mechanized cavalry units, la Somua Société d'Outillage Mécanique et d'Usinage d'Artillerie. That's my French. Pardon my French. S-35, a medium tank, appeared in 1935. It was the first tank to appear with both a cast hull and cast turret. All of the hull was constructed in sections and bolted together. In many ways, it was one of the best tanks of the early war period, having armor and armament comparable to the Panzer IV. Deliveries began in 1936, and about 500 had been completed by May 1940, but only half were in service with combat units. All were supposed to have radios, but only about 28% did due to shortages. On one of the few occasions when a significant number were able to concentrate for an attack against the advancing Germans, they were wiped out by Stuka dive bombers. Like other French tanks of the period, the S-35 featured a cramped one-man turret, preventing the commander from doing his job effectively. Visibility for the crew was poor, and access to the engine for maintenance was difficult. One feature of the Somua S-35 was a powered turret. See, so it's a powered turret right there. An improved model, the S-40, was under evaluation with a 164 kilowatt 220 horsepower engine and improved suspension, but only a few were completed by the time of the French capitulation. Similarly, only a prototype of the SAU-40 self-propelled gun was completed. Several hundred were passed on to Italy, and the S-35 had a second lease of life later in the war when a shortage of tanks led the Germans to withdraw many examples from storage and issued them to training units. Few French units used the S-35 in the North African campaign. Others were recaptured after the Normandy invasion and used by French units. Despite their age, some of these tanks were used well into the post-war era, making the S-35 one of the longest-lived tanks developed in the 1930s. So this image is from Aberdeen Ordnance Museum in the United States, and this one too. Here's another image of the Somua tank S-35. Has a pretty handsome camo. There's a powered traverse turret, cast hull, cast turret, and upon the breach of Normandy, when the French had their chance, they re-seized the Samoas and used them against the Germans. And that is a Somua production.